But yes, my name is Mike Derry. I'm within Canadian Natural, and I support our campus team here. So there's a few different ways, I guess, that companies have they hire students. Some companies have their business areas individually look for students. At Canadian Natural, we have a team within HR that looks after hiring students. So we have a fairly large campus team, and I support that team. Few quick things about Canadian Natural is we're a senior independent oil and gas provider in Canada. We have over 10,000 employees. Head office is in Canada. It is in Calgary. So makes us a little bit different than a lot of the other players. We have a balanced and diverse portfolio mix. We produce over 1 million barrels of oil a day. As mentioned, we are the largest oil and gas producer in Canada. And so if you're not within oil and gas, you may not necessarily even know who Canadian Natural is. But we have a large amount of operations, obviously, in Alberta, some in BC, some in Saskatchewan. We have some offshore operations. But most of the facilities we have is in Western Canada, and we're a large oil sands player. We have a very awesome goal of having a commitment to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. There's a lot of things that we've done that have been great happening with, and I'm sure you guys share all those kind of stats with your members, but we actually are more than just a commitment. We actually have a plan in place to reach those. And if you look at some of the things that we've done in the past, we've dropped our greenhouse gas emissions, our water usage. We continue to involve our technology and innovation procedures. So we have some really cool things that are going on. And so we're leading the way in terms of, making oil and gas a more cleaner and effective solution. For instance, constant improvement. So, within our methane emissions, 15%, within our oil sands, mining and thermal, a 36% reduction. So there's a lot of things that we are doing. We're aware as an industry that we have to get better. And so, like I said, a lot of really cool things that we're doing to reduce that, and we can find out more. This is kind of really sort of cool too for any of those we'll call it those techie folks out there. But one of our groups at Horizon. So Horizon is an open pit oil sands mine near Fort McMurray. The mine itself is about the similar size of downtown Calgary. Anyway, so what they've done though is what you're seeing here is they've used some augmenting reality. So you can actually, put on some VR goggles and walk the plant and, see how things are, so that when they're looking at, doing any sort of upgrades or, enhancements, they could actually see how that might fit. And so it's really kind of cool stuff that we have that people might not realize. And so the reason I bring this up, two reasons. One, I think it's kind of cool, but the second is that it's not just oil and gas, right? So a lot of leading edge, technical solutions. There's lots of opportunity within oil and gas. You get to spend time in the field, not just in the office. You get to take on projects, and because of our scope and size, some of these projects aren't necessarily available to some smaller companies. You get to do things because they actually interest you and that they actually matter. Standing up for Canadian energy. The world needs it. The world needs a lot of it. It's not going away, and you can actually be part of that solution. I encourage you guys to learn more, join an info session, that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but within the accounting world and the engineering world, it's an incredibly competitive market. And so what that means ultimately is that some of the accounting companies they start recruiting a year and a half in advance, which I mean, you can't get much earlier than that. We look at, we plan very much so that September 1st, all of our positions for the next year go live. So if you're looking for a January position, a May position, a September position, companies like us, we post all of our positions September 1st. So, the first little tip is be ready September 1st. You're just back from, your last summer job, or if you're in year one, you're just starting school. The last thing you're thinking about is working in the summer. Well, guess what? Be prepared. Get your applications ready, because it is competitive, and those good positions get scooped up quick. Based on the school, based on other companies, usually the remaining positions get posted about 4 months out. So if you're looking for a May start, those positions will go live in January, if not sooner. So you have to be planning at least 4 months out to be applying for those good positions. So we post obviously all of them all at once. If you look at our website, I think there's about 70 positions that are live, and that equates to a few hundred positions. So there's a lot of things going on. And the reason I say that is because when we shortlist, especially right now in September, October timeframe, there's career fairs after career fairs. You're on campus. Each of your school probably has different career fairs. The discipline, the faculty, there's an engineering career fair, there's an accounting career fair, there's a supply chain career fair. So, and then you times that by a lot of schools across Canada. There's career fairs, multiple career fairs every day. There's also info sessions for certain companies that you're interested in. So the point being, though, is right now we're collecting a whole bunch of applicants. So you may have applied in September. We're trying to look at your resume as we can, but we're also dealing with a whole bunch of recs. And so trying to look at that, trying to shortlist it, finding out what that looks like, and booking that. There's quite often talk about, well, how do I get past the ATS? Or do you guys use an ATS? Or what the heck is an ATS? So an ATS is an applicant tracking system. And there's a bunch of different names out there, whether it's Taleo or Workday or, the list goes on. But ultimately what it is it's the computer software that posts the job and you apply to. Most people think that there's some magical scripting behind the scenes that looks for keywords and it searches for this and it searches for that. And there might be some companies that do that, but most companies don't. The ATS that we use, we have a bunch of, we'll call it multiple choice questions in the application. And those questions help us make sure that you're the right applicant for what we're looking for. So, hey, this position starts in January and it's for 8 months. Are you available in January for 8 months? Yes or no? And if you say no, well, then it's a waste of both of our time. Let's just cut it there, right? Are you eligible to work in Canada? This position is based in Calgary. Do you know that? Are you wanting to work in Calgary? Some of the basics. So we will use the ATS to make sure that you and us are looking for the same thing. But do we use it to further shortlist to see, do you have the right attitude? Do you have the right grades? Do you have the right, the quick answer is no, because there's a lot of individual assessment that needs to be done there. We obviously do the interviews. Usually it's in WebEx, which is similar to Zoom or Skype or Teams or that kind of stuff. It hopefully in January, when there's actually in-person events, we often have bulk interview days. So during those career fairs, a bunch of the team goes there, we chat with folks, and then we have bulk interview days back to back to back in person. But we try to, again, make this process fairly simple. One interview and it's done. It's a student position. You're not expected to have a whole bunch of technical experience. You're not expected to have 10 years of work experience. I mean, you're a student. It's we expect that, or we should be expecting that. So ways to stand out. How do you try to beat the system somehow, whether it's automated or if it's just a recruiter? So the first one being is have a great application. Take a look at the company you're applying for. Prepare. If you there's a lot of questions about cover letters. Should we have a cover letter? Do we not need a cover letter? Is it a waste of time? You ask 5 different recruiters, you'll get 10 different answers. So my philosophy is, if you are taking the time to make a great cover letter, that's good. You should include it. If you're just going to use a generic cover letter, you're wasting everyone's time. The other thing is that generally an application has a cover letter, your resume, and your transcripts. And it's, as a student or even a new grad, it's important to include your transcripts. But most companies or most ATSs, or even yourself, you have 3 different documents or even more, and you're uploading. The average recruiter is likely only going to open up one attachment. And if they like what they see, they'll open up a second one, maybe a third one. So make it easy on them. So my suggestion is take those 3 documents and have them in one. So the first document, the only document I open, I see a fantastic cover letter. When I'm reading that cover letter, if I happen to see my name on it or a name of one of my peers, you've just gained yourself a few extra seconds. Because I'm partly thinking, who the heck is this person? How do they know me? Do I know them? Right? Taking that time to try to read it. I have looked at lots of resumes, and unfortunately, it may sound bad, but I typically look at a resume for about 10 seconds or less and determine, is it worth looking at it for any longer? So if you can do things that will stand out to say, hey, this resume is worth looking at a little bit more, you should, right? So on your cover letter, if it's a great cover letter, if you can personalize it, and you don't necessarily need to know somebody's name, but you can actually personalize it to the company that you're looking for. Talk a little bit about the position that you're applying for and how it's a fit. I view your application a little bit as a story, and you need to tell that story. So in terms of, you've worked here, you've done this, you've done that. And so this job that you're applying for is the next natural progression in what you're looking for, right? It's not you were a baker and then you were, babysitting, and then now all of a sudden you're applying for an engineering position. So how are those related? And there's a very good chance that they're related, even if it's just to gain work experience and work ethic and that kind of stuff. But if you don't know the value of it, if you can't tell me how it's important to me, don't expect me to try to just assume and fill in the gaps. You need to be clear with that application. So making it a clear story, very succinct, very targeted, will help you. Part of it is understanding the position that you're applying for. So if you take a look and it's a tax accountant for a company like Canadian Natural. So you can assume that a tax accounting student within a large company is probably going to have to look at different taxing requirements. They're going to have to look at enterprise rules in terms of provincial rules. Maybe a company like ours, well, for sure a company like ours, operates in multiple areas. So, do you know the difference between Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan and federal and international rules, right? So you've already taken a look at that position and you're thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? What kind of skill sets will I need? You're putting that in your application, you're preparing that in your interview. You're understanding the company that you're working for. So a company like Canadian Natural, we are a large oil and gas producer. We operate in all different areas. we focus on constantly improving. We focus on the environment. We focus on ensuring that we're able to operate. So things that would make sense is when you're looking at a company, you can look at the About Us page, things like that, but take a look at someone's mission statement, their value statement, maybe how their stock is doing. I mean, you don't have to maybe do a whole lot of research, but you should at least know enough about the company and maybe what stands out. How is it personalized to you? If you are focused on biological, medicine, and you're biomedical engineer, and you come to Canadian Natural and you're wanting to apply for something. At first, I will be a little bit of a head scratching of like, what are you doing? What kind of position are you looking for, right? When you go to career fairs and you see a company, and yes, I can understand there's a whole bunch of companies that you probably don't know much about at a career fair. But if you've taken the time and you have at least some idea, the last thing I want to hear at a career fair is, "Hi, I'm a data science student. What kind of jobs do you have for me?" Bit of a wrong approach. A better approach would be, I'm taking data science in school. I saw this posting online, or I'm interested in these type of positions. Do you have any of these type of positions, or what would these positions be called within your organization? How do I find them? How do I look for them? Does that position exist? Prepare for the interview. So if you were to take a look online, a bunch of different options. I mean, there's Glassdoor, there's other websites there that talk about, different companies and processes. You can have a good idea of what type of interview they're going to ask. If there's an HR guy present, they're probably going to ask some of those HR type questions. And, you think what type of questions they'll ask. You can almost be guaranteed that someone in an interview will say, "So tell me about yourself." They'll ask you about a time you dealt with conflict, your strengths, your weaknesses, maybe a time you used your problem solving skills, or you figured something out. So you can make a list of all of these type of questions that you think somebody might ask you in an interview. And at the same time, you can write a few examples of what does that look like? What is, if someone asks you a question of how did you solve a problem? How did you work well with a team? You actually have a list of possible solutions that you could ask that with. And there's nothing wrong with taking that piece of paper with a few notes on it to your interview, right? There's lots of people that get stumped in an interview and let me think about it. Well, if you've actually taken the time to prepare, you at least aren't stumped. You have a few different situations that you can pull from. So we've all sort of done it, but social media presence. So take a moment and Google yourself. Are you happy with what you find? Would your parents be happy with what they see? Are you coming across professional, or is there a bit of a head scratcher in some of the actions that you've taken? So, I mean, obviously there's things like LinkedIn, and that's expected to have a fairly high level of professionalism. Things like Facebook, a company like Canadian Natural doesn't socially creep you and find out what you've done on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and whatever it might be. But you should still be mindful that there are companies that do. What is shared? Is that information something that it's good to have it's okay to have a good time out there, but it's also be mindful of just how much are you sharing. networking. So in school, regardless of whether, even high school or first year, second, third year, people are saying, go out there and network, meet people, network. What the heck does that mean? Well, for one, generally speaking, if you were to network today, that does not mean you're getting a job tomorrow. Networking means you'll likely be able to use that network in a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, maybe a few years from now. So your classmates are part of your network. I would imagine that somebody within the class that you have will help you get a job in 5 years from now. Maybe some of the career fairs that you go to, you're talking to people, you're not just, oh, there's Mike from Canadian Natural, I'm going to add them on LinkedIn, and then as soon as there's a job, I'm going to reach out, which you're welcome to do that. I get a lot of those requests, but it's not going to work for everybody. So what you'll need to be doing is that you're actually, you're first off sending a request. And then now that they've even connected with you, how are you maintaining that network? Do you just add them as a friend and you talk to them in a year from now when you need something? Or are you constantly engaging with their media posts, right? Where you think of the social media that you post, and ways that your friends interact. They're liking content, they're sharing content, they're resharing the content. Things like that. You're actually building that network, strengthening that network with your friends and your connections. And so sometimes you can have connections on social media that you've never actually met, but you're interacting with all the time, and you actually feel a connection with, right? So that is sort of the strength of networking. And then when you actually, want to utilize that network, you want to use your connection who works at that company, you actually have a relationship with somebody there, and you can reach out and you can ask them, what is it like to work there? What type of interview questions are likely going to be asked? What's the process like? What stands out? What's important to people, right? The other thing is that you need to talk about your passion. I can think of so many examples where we have student engineers and you ask them, oh, why did you go into engineering? Well, mommy or daddy were an engineer. And mommy or daddy said I should go into engineering. And, I should apply for this job because mommy and daddy said it's a good job. Okay, well, that's one example, and that's good. And maybe you need, your butt kicked a little bit to motivate you to apply. But you should also have a passion for it. You should like some component of engineering or accounting or whatever the heck it is that you're applying for and doing, and be showcasing that. And part of that whole resume where we're telling a story is you're talking about your passion in everything that you're doing. And so when it comes to, oh, you're applying for this position, your resume, everything that you've done is showcasing that passion. And this is just the natural next step.